Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming solar eclipse slash new moon taking place at 0 degrees in the sign of Cancer on the 21st of the month. And of course, it also coincides with the summer solstice of 2020. But of course, at the same time, we also have a Mercury retrograde in the sign of Cancer, and Mercury's retrograde starts today, where today it is standing still in the sky, preparing to go retrograde tomorrow. So, right now, we have a very powerful and intense Mercury in Cancer, and this is just like a celestial preparation, a celestial invitation for all of us to tap into the energies and the potential and of course the power of this very magical, very strong solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer, because chances are that this is definitely going to be a game changer for all of us, both individually and collectively alike. But of course, collectively, it can manifest over the course of the next 6 months, and individually as well. But when or how this manifests in our personal lives depends so very much on other factors. So for some people, it can be a very quick and spontaneous manifestation, while for others, it's a very slow but steady and ultimately a healing process. So it's not just a wonderful, fantastic, and really significant new beginning, but it is also profound core level healing. So the energies and the symbolism tied to this new moon is really powerful and special for so very many different reasons, and some of those reasons are going to be detailed in this recording. But before we actually get there to the analysis of this new moon eclipse, we have to talk about a couple of different things which are going to be taking place in the sky at the time of the eclipse. And one of these elements is the very close dance of Jupiter and Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. Both of these planets are retrograde. And this continues the main karmic theme of 2020, which represents the deconstruction and ultimately afterwards the reconstruction of centralized power. And this is a very potent energy of truth. Yes, of course, there is a subjectivity to it because this is inner truth, but ultimately, in the present moment where all of us stand and the whole world stands, there is absolutely nothing other than inner truth, nothing else than subjectivity, and this is what we ultimately have to use to create the future, because chances are nothing that is out there in the present moment, not even the most detailed and most rational scientific explanations, are not actually objective, and everything has a very strong aura of subjectivity into it. So basically, this can be perceived as negative, but at the same time, it can be perceived as the inner truth being the supreme force that governs all realities in the present moment, and that is an absolutely wonderful and very potent creational energy, where on one hand, of course, that creational energy deconstructs and cleanses the symbolism of Capricorn, so centralized power, our own inner structures, our life paths, our careers. But this is where it's the soul level career and not so much our, what our human identities and the ego chose for us to do in this life. So everything is being stripped down to the very primordial core of everything. So this is basically Chiron and Aries. Chiron is healing our primordiality, our primal instincts, everything that we are and everything that we represent in our ancestral heritage, whatever we, inherited from our ancestors, our genes, our instincts, the archetype of who we are right now. And of course, an even more potent energy is Mars still in the sign of Pisces. So this brings all raw emotion and the past and our life histories to the surface, Whereas in the last couple of weeks, when it formed a very potent square with the Sun in Gemini, it was highly uncomfortable, depressive, melancholic. It triggered a lot of subconscious purges, so it was a really, really heavy, uncomfortable, frustrating, and disempowering energy, where all of us and the whole world, as we could have seen just the last couple of weeks, stood from a place of victimhood, from hurt, from wounds, from the trauma still dominating us. But now, especially at the time of the eclipse, Mars is no longer exactly conjunct Neptune, so those wounds, the trauma, was processed more or less, and everything that wasn't processed is actually not meant to hurt us at this time, but rather it is a very big reminder of who we truly are, our past, our stories, everything that we had to endure, everything that we had to sacrifice, everything that all the options and choices that we made in the name of compassion, in the name of sacrificing perhaps our well-being and our, the ways of our egos in order to benefit the world or other people. So this is very, very important to recall, to remember, and to stand from a place of knowing and appreciating deeply where all of us started from. And all our wounds, all the past, everything that, defeated us, ultimately from a divine perspective, served us to know exactly how it feels to be a victim, to have wounds, not to be okay basically, because once we live this, once we experience this profoundly, exactly according to the life view of the Buddhists, where they thought that physical existence is actually about pain because that is the ultimate teacher. Well, they're absolutely true, but this is where we embody deep compassion and empathy because of our own wounds. We know how it feels like to be a victim. We know how it feels like to suffer. We know how it feels like to be drowned in sorrow and misery from every single angle in our lives. And that is what makes us human. That is what guides us to make the choice and the option, the decision to do the exact opposite of this, to help people, to lift people up. Our well-beings are gifts from the divine to us, or rewards for our own efforts and actions. But that is where, what do we do with our blessing? If our lives are happy, safe, wealthy, prosperous, we stand in a position of power, then what do we do with it? What happens next? Well, the answer is simple. Instead of rubbing it in the wounds of other people, instead of showing off, instead of taking pride in our accomplishments and how great and powerful and smart and whatever we are, we don't do that. But rather, we lower ourselves to the level of the collective, we lower ourselves with intent in order to have that empathic connection to those who are vulnerable, weak, disadvantaged, and we lift them up with our experience. We lift them up with our power. And ultimately, that is the most positive expression of Mars in Pisces, that we can make this choice, this decision. Mars, a very action-oriented power, to invest our advantages, our strength, our life experience, because ultimately Pisces is the subconscious. It is where everything is stored, good and bad, and the good is ultimately wisdom and life experience, and we use that to uplift the status, the energy, the vibe, or the lives in any way possible of other people. And this is how we get equality. This is how we get unconditional support and love, where yes, absolutely, we can ignore in a very positive way what others deserve and just embrace equality. And this is exactly another symbolism the super galactic center being at 2 degrees of Libra, which is going to speak in an outer sign square with this new moon. And yes, it is a conversation of tension, but that tension is ultimately motivation, because we're doing everything right now for true and genuine equality. And the stars, the heavens, Jupiter and Pluto are supporting us. And at the time of the eclipse, these two planets are going to be holding a beautiful celestial conversation of harmony with that Mars in Pisces, a sextile as astrologers call it. And this is the energy of divine guidance, inspiration, inner power, inner spiritual, emotional power, the power of life experience, the power of belief and faith, the power of true magic, the magic of the heart and the soul, the magic of compassion, the magic of care, and power of focus and intent where we place it, because it is definitely going to manifest one way or another. So this is a massive celestial empowerment which gives us the raw emotional, spiritual, psychological inner strength to make a wish, basically, because that is the dance of Pluto and Mars. Pluto is the higher octave of Mars, so it is divine strength, inner power. Both planets, which symbolize power in different ways, are in harmony with each other. They are complementing each other. They are combining their strength to empower us so that we can wish the well-being, peace, unconditional love, and ultimately the highest good of every sentient living being in our sphere of awareness. And this is also where the symbolism of Cancer comes in. Cancer is the healer. Cancer is the support. Cancer is the psychologist, the nurturer, the protector, the carer. So Cancer ultimately heals and regenerates and supports and nurtures itself, but it can extend that nurturing to anyone it wishes. So that is why the power of Cancer is the best healer, the best psychologist, the best support, the best parent, carer, or whatever in the zodiac. And this is where the energies of Cancer are going to spike in its most ultimate expression, because this eclipse is taking place at 0 degrees, a critical degree, the degree of Aries, the initiator, and also the eclipse is happening exactly on top of the world axis. So all of this promotes new beginning. All of this promotes a concentration of celestial and emotional heart energy. The most supreme expression of the moon, basically, because the moon is the ruler of Cancer. The moon is the symbol of our souls. So this is highly karmic, highly spiritual, and if healing, global, collective, ancestral healing is possible, well, this is definitely how it looks in astrology, how it looks in a star chart. A solar eclipse, which is a very powerful new moon happening at an extremely powerful degree of the best healing sign out there, the most nurturing and healing energies. So this is going to be massive. And of course, everything that happened ever since the beginning of the year, the Saturn and Pluto conjunction, a very rare aspect that only takes place once every 500 years, the shift of the nodes of the moon, the Venus retrograde, the dance of Jupiter and Pluto, everything, basically what happened was, really unpleasant, because that was a very powerful karmic moment when our normalities had to be shattered, when the truth, both from within us and collectively, had to be pulled in a very uncomfortable way to the surface, so that all of us can see the flaws, weaknesses, the corruption, the nepotism, the cruelty of centralized power, the ignorance, the highly subjective nature of the truth, so that we can finally accept, in a very scientific way even, because we see it with our own eyes playing out in the world, that truth is always subjective and never ever ever objective. Only the divine intelligence holds objectivity, and never a human being, and never even a god. Nothing except the ultimate expression of the divine holds objectivity. Not one creation of it holds objectivity, basically. So we shouldn't even dream about objectivity. No one holds the truth. No one, not one single living being, not one single spiritual being, which is individual from the source, holds, objective truth. So we shouldn't even look at it as being the ultimate and unrefined objective truth. No, everything has subjectivity to it, and ultimately this is leading us and guiding us to the 21st of December 2020, the time of the Great Conjunction. Saturn and Jupiter meet in 0 degrees, again the 0 number, of Aquarius, which is setting the opening of the new paradigm. We are embracing a totally different future, because this is the first time in 600 years when this celestial event occurs in the sign of Aquarius. So this is massive. This is ultimately, very simply said, a massive quantum leap, where all of us collectively leap into a mysterious, unknown, but very different future, where, the element of air, the intellect, but the purity and the good intent of the intellect is going to dominate everything. So this solar eclipse, this new moon taking place in Cancer on the 21st of June, this is basically a big pivotal moment, because up until this present moment, we experienced a lot of downs, a lot of negativity, a lot of pain and hurt, and this is where we finally step into healing. This is where, all of these past couple of years, ever since Saturn entered into the sign of Capricorn in 2017, it was like bringing everything to the surface. All of our wounds had to be opened, basically, for us to acknowledge them. And this is where we have the chance to heal them, because we can only heal something once we are aware of it. And this is perfectly valid both individually, no matter what problems, blockages, anything we might have in our lives, but at the same time collectively, when we know in this present moment exactly what we need to heal, exactly what we need to change, we can see exactly where the flaws and weaknesses of humankind are. So this information, and this was the big reason why we had that ongoing square between Mars and the Sun in Gemini, the communication, and then of course the square between Venus and Neptune in the sign of Gemini, because Gemini is our minds, our communication, our awareness, the lower function of our minds, which is absolutely needed right now to navigate as a human being. So all of that pulled to the surface, into our awareness, into the visibility sphere of the eyes of the mind, every problem that we had, and now we are guided to heal it. And the stars, the heavens, the karmic forces, because the karmic forces, this is taking place very, very, very close to the North Node, an exalted North Node, where we have to make progress. This is where we step into our futures, and we are healing everything. Ultimately, this is like a personal moment of a massive rebirth, but not a fiery phoenix type of rebirth, but rather, us emerging from the cocoon, the metamorphosis, where we were a caterpillar bound to the earth, which had to survive with different rules and regulations. But now we are in the cocoon and we have already digested ourselves. Our wings are already formed. We are starting to break out of the cocoon. And at the time of the eclipse, that is where we learn how to fly and how to navigate in the coming new reality. It is not only a time of revelations, especially intuitive, very personal revelations that have to do with our own destinies, but also it is a time when we are being prepared to step into the new. And of course, I said that this is not a phoenix type of rebirth, but actually it also is, because this kind of eclipse is like a big ring of fire. So, when the moon is that much distant from the planet, so it won't shadow all of the sun, it will only shadow the biggest part of it, still leaving that fire ring visibility. And that is definitely the energy of fire, and that is definitely the rebirth of the phoenix. But of course, we have Pluto in Capricorn, so that is also a very earthly kind of rebirth. And Venus at this time is trining Saturn from fellow air sign Aquarius. So, of course, this is even an intellectual rebirth, an intellectual recrystallization of our greatest visions, life views, and principles, and whatever we would like to experience in the future, our most sacred hopes and dreams, basically. The symbolism of Aquarius has so much to do with the future. It can be seen as the symbol of our future hopes and dreams, our goals, everything that we would like to experience. The ruler of the 11th house, basically. So when Saturn entered into the sign of Aquarius, its ancient ruling sign, that was basically like a celestial invitation, a celestial wake-up call, where the sky just said, well, let's just wake up to reality, let's embody the energy of realism and see what can be possible in the future and not. And when we decided what is and what not possible for ourselves, and depending on this what we would like to experience, what our true goals are, now Saturn is moving back to Capricorn, its ruling sign, where it is the power of manifestation. It is basically like when you put a command in the computer and it asks you, are you sure that you want to log this command in? And then you have to press yes and no. And this is the retrograding of Saturn back into Capricorn, where it is fixing whatever we desire to experience. And then ultimately, after it moves out in 21st December 2020 and starts its transit in Aquarius, that is when we are going to work towards whatever we desired in this present moment. But anyway, let's just look at the eclipse right now. So the eclipse is the conjunction of the sun and moon happening very close to the ecliptic, the nodes of the moon. So this is very close to the north node. And also this eclipse is very, very powerful and special because it takes place on top of the world axis. So it represents a very potent new beginning, an initiative, something new entering our reality over the course of the next 6 months, And the main symbolism of Cancer, nurture, the sign of the mother, the sign of the carer. So this is a very potent healing energy. This is a very, very strong emotional purity kind of energy, where we are alchemizing everything and purifying our souls. We are purifying our emotional worlds, past, present, and yes, absolutely future. We're eliminating all the blockages, all the tar, the filth, the polluted water, all the pollutants of our soul. We are eliminating them and we're stepping into healing. But of course, this is not just simple healing. This is taking place on the 21st of the month, so it coincides with the solstice. And every ancient civilization, every culture has a very special place for solstices. Of course, its symbolism is so very different and diverse, but why? Because the ancients knew that at the time of the solstices, the veil between the worlds is extremely thin, so it is the most perfect opportunity for rituals, for magic, for spirituality, for prayers, for meditation, to set and plant new seeds of intention into the universe. This marks the new beginning of the, you know, cycle of the next 3 months, as in nature, the seasons, agriculture, and everything. But ultimately, that was the core of existence and life for the ancients. So it was very, very important. And to add to this, the eclipse in itself also lifts the veil between the worlds. So that is the moment when everything becomes a big portal. When the cosmic, the divine internet is on full blast and downloads and uploads are instantaneous. So this is a very powerful moment when we can actually wish something into existence. And Mars being in the sign of Pisces, the sign of fantasy, the sign of the soul basically. Mars is the sign of the divine masculine. So basically, we are alchemically, how should I even say this? Combining the divine masculine energies, the power of our wishes, our dreams, our desires. But this is where they're not just any desire. This is a deep, profound soul level desire. Mars in, the sign of Pisces. We're uniting that with the fertility, the creational energies of the mother, of the great cosmic mother, the sign of Cancer, the mother moon, the home of the moon basically, with the moon being in her home at this time. So that is extremely powerful. This is massive creational energy. And yes, absolutely, there's a conversation of tension between Mars and this new moon. But this conversation of tension is not exact, it is not perfect, it is even an outer sign conversation. So basically, that is just a very potent motivational energy where we have to be aligned with our true soul level desires, with our spirit of compassion, standing from a place of remembering where we started from, all our wounds, everything that we went through during this lifetime, but not to victimize ourselves, absolutely not, but to remember, to honor our own sacrifices, to honor our own bravery, because for our souls to incarnate here in matter, that is a massive act of bravery. We human beings have no idea how much courage it takes to come here, because the universe is filled with an infinite number of consciousnesses, and they don't come here. Why? Well, because they don't have what it takes, they don't have the guts to suffer, and this is the ultimate truth. So all of us who are alive right now on the planet are extremely courageous, are extremely powerful souls, because we accepted everything and we were determined that we have everything that it takes for us to survive with grace and dignity and do the divine work even while we are here on this planet, in flesh, in matter, and we have so many problems to resolve for the sheer sake of survival. And besides that, we still took it upon ourselves to live a life of compassion and being there for others and ultimately doing the divine work. And this is the square of Mars and this new moon, because we have to honor our own sacrifices, we have to honor our own stories, but we honor it by detaching from it, releasing the pain, and even the good, even the fantastic, even the big moments of happiness. And by releasing it, we give ourselves the chance to wish something new, to wish our own healing, and ultimately to step into the new. Now, this new moon also speaks in a minor astrological conversation, which we call a quincunx, with Saturn standing from 1 degree approximately of Aquarius. And a quincunx is a very unusual aspect because it links together two areas of life which have absolutely nothing to do with each other, but its manifestation can bring surprises, unexpected events, randomness, awkwardness, weirdness, of course, but ultimately every single astrological conversation has a very powerful potential to it, And Saturn is the planet of manifestation. It is the big karmic judge. So basically, what this conversation is telling us, let's not be intimidated to dream big, to wish something, even if that something is not a very palpable and concrete thing. For example, world peace, healing, happiness, or whatever. Let us dare to dream big, because as long as our dreams do not source from survival mentality, from ego, from self-centeredness, from ignorance, but they source from knowledge, from awareness, from compassion, from the purity of our hearts, where we already understand the divine lessons, well then, basically our desires are irresistible for the universe. When something sources from the purity of someone's soul, well, the universe will always conspire in our favors to bring that into existence. But this is where the quincunx plays out, not as we expect it, not as we desire it, but as it is possible. The universe knows, the divine intelligence knows what is more opportune, what is more perfect, what is more ideal, what serves the best. So this is where we just have to surrender it and leave it to the divine mind to figure out exactly how, when, in which way, in which form. This is where we have to abandon all our expectation and just trust. And ultimately, what do we trust? We trust our own dignity, we trust our own purity, our own sense of self-worth, the healthy one of course, not narcissistic tendencies, and that is Saturn in Aquarius. Because if we live the life of dignity, then we have absolutely no reason to worry or to fear anything, because the universe is definitely going to respect everything that what we input into it. What we put into it is what is going to give us back. And if we lived a life of honesty, dignity, justice, then we have absolutely nothing to fear. And of course we have every single reason to trust that our new beginning is going to be that much more potent, magical, and ideal for the soul who we are. Now let's take a look at all of this from a more practical perspective, because everything what I have said until this moment was pretty much philosophy. So this very potent solar eclipse / new moon is a fantastic new beginning in our lives individually and collectively as well. And collectively, it is ultimately going to strengthen the bonds between local communities, the individual and the community, finding our place in the world, strengthening the bonds between cultures, people learning to appreciate that much more their history, the history of their culture, the spirituality of their cultures, their own distinctiveness and uniqueness, and of course everything that their culture, everything that their collective went through all throughout history. Because that is absolutely both good and bad, because no culture just lived good or just bad. And all those experiences we can learn to appreciate that much more, even if it's a very negative experience. Even if it's, the slavery, the bad choices that big civilizations have made in history, all of that. The wars, the suffering, the depression, the oppression, the financial injustices, and all of that. Those belong to history, and they are negative, but we can appreciate the lesson what they have taught us, and our ancestors suffered for us having to learn that lesson. So now we can repay them and we can honor them by embodying the lesson and not allowing the past to repeat. So this is a very, very potent healing energy collectively, where it is healing our ancestral traumas and our wounds, and of course all the differences between different cultures. But this is of course a long and slow process, but it's steady. While individually it depends so very much on where Cancer, 0 degrees of Cancer, falls into your own chart, but a big general idea, if you're someone who is seeking your place in the world, may that be physically as in house, the home, the place where you would like to live, this is a very, very good and potent energy for that. If you wish to establish a family of your own, have children, get married, belong to a family basically, this is a very powerful energy for that. If you are willing to buy your house, swap your house, sell it, do something with your house, this can be a really good energy for that as well. If you want to fix, heal, rebuild bridges in your familiar relationships, between parents and children, relatives, cousins, brothers, sisters, sibling, or any extended familiar circle, or even soul level connections, deep karmic friendships or alliances or relationships, this is also very good and healing energy. But at the same time, if you want a fantastic new beginning emotionally for yourself, for example, a new soul level relationship, a beautiful friendship, anything that has to do with emotions, this can be a very powerful and fantastic new beginning for you. And ultimately, these healing energies are pretty much general, so all of us can benefit from it as we need, as we desire. All we need to do is open ourselves up and make that wish. But Cancer is the power of the people, so we have to include other people, for example, everyone who we love, or just the whole world and humanity as a collective in general. If we include the well-being of everyone else, that just adds to our own power. So during the time of this eclipse, we need to embody compassion, solidarity, the power of the purified sacred heart, if that makes sense. In a very different manner of speaking, if there is such a thing as Christ consciousness, well, this is going to be a moment when we are going to experience it. This is going to be a moment when basically the veil between the worlds lift and the divine is going to be that much closer to us at, touching distance, so to speak, symbolically. And this is also a moment when the divine masculine and feminine fuse their essences together, and in this cosmic fertility they create something beautiful and fantastic. So this, if there was ever a time for miracles, well, this was definitely it. But the miracles also need our input. They need our emotions, our most distilled, purified, and most potent emotions, that of love, compassion, care, and solidarity. And this Mercury retrograde is actually a beautiful complementary energy to this, because it will heal us, it will guide us, it will show us our inner emotional truth like nothing else. Especially that after this new moon, Mercury will start to speak in a sextile with Uranus, so that is divine inspiration. And I would like to close this horoscope with an advice for everyone. As I said earlier, we have a beautiful sextile in the sky between Pluto and Mars. Now that is the expression of inner power, one's sovereign divine will, asking the universe as your parent, as your source, as your creator, but also as your alter ego basically, because the universe experiences itself through us, so our feelings and our choices matter to it very much. We are the breath of the universe basically. We are the lungs of the universe, where it experiences its own, existence through us by breathing. Every breath that we take is an information, a feeling, an experience, a lived experience that we're sending into the universe. Of course, this communication is reciprocal perfectly. It is not just one-sided. So we are always in a permanent communication, energy and emotional transfer with the source, with the universe, and directly or indirectly, it doesn't even matter. What matters is that it is active. So during this time, if you're even just slightly spiritual, if you have any kind of magical practice, spiritual practice, even if it's simple as a prayer or a meditation, or just sitting down with yourself in sacred solitude. Do everything that it is in your power to focus on your desires, to focus on healing, to wish something into existence what is most important to you, for your soul, for your journey in this life, and of course include the world and other people into this, because chances are this is the power of the people. This is when we wish the well-being of the world and our own bright and beautiful futures into existence. This is the moment when with our souls, when with our magic, Mars sextile Pluto, the power of magic, the power of the soul, the quantic power of our minds. Yes, it doesn't have anything to do with air signs, with the mind, so to speak, but Pluto is the subconscious. Pluto is the planet of alchemy and psychoanalysis, so it has very much to do with the mind on its own. And speaking about mind, we still have Venus in Gemini, so that is all that we need. The heart united with the mind, and they form a trine, a supremely harmonious celestial dance together. So Venus and Saturn, and that is the power of realism, real love, distilled, purified, grounded love. So we can embody love at this time, not just in our heart space, but our minds are also going to be filled with unconditional love. So what a perfect magical opportunity to simply cast our wish into the fertility of the universe. The moon in the sign of Cancer, the ancient mother, the Tiamat, the Morrigan, the goddess of fertility, the supreme expression of the divine feminine, especially when she is fertile. So this is a very potent creational energy that we have to use at this time. So if you are even just slightly a spiritual person, to say a prayer or to cast a thought into the, infinite ocean of the ether, it doesn't take any effort really. But if you are a very strong magical person, if you're on a clear magical spiritual path, well then definitely this is your big opportunity to do the divine work. So even if it's just your own individual meditation, a prayer, or absolutely anything, even taking a walk, even riding your bicycle, but wishing inside of you the well-being of all sentient beings, wishing love to enter into this world, wishing the cosmic mother to take your seeds of intention and make them grow. This is all that you need to do. And if you can join any group meditation, any global meditation, the power of the people basically, then that is also extremely powerful. And this kind of concludes my interpretation of this solar eclipse / new moon taking place at 0 degree of Cancer. So once again, please let all of us join our magics, the power of our spirit, the power of our faith together, because that Jupiter is also part of the deal. Jupiter is the planet of faith, of belief. So let all of us use this wonderful opportunity together. Of course, it doesn't mean that we have to join meditations and whatever. Everyone should do what feels comfortable for them personally, as long as we make that wish and draw well-being, healing, and miracles, divine intervention into this world so that we can create a totally different future for all of us. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope this was useful. Wish everyone a magical, blessed, and super powerful eclipse. May all your dreams, wishes, and your heart's deep desire come true so that you can live an existence of happiness, happiness with yourself, and happiness with all those who you love dearly. Thank you once again. Until next time, bye for now.